Welcome back, everyone, to Profluence Sports. Have another great one today as we continue to do our series on emerging leagues. We got Anthony here today with OmegaBall. So, Anthony, appreciate you hopping on. How are you today, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Andrew.
I love it. Yeah, I've been excited for this one for a long time. Then, obviously, you guys got, we'll just put it at the beginning, big event, ESPN2. Give us that quick before we roll into this, just so we make sure we sneak this in right at the start, because everyone should definitely check it out if you haven't seen this sport today. And obviously, you're going to learn a lot more throughout this episode.
Yeah, we literally just got our kickoff time, so this is great timing from that perspective. But we'll be 12 p.m. Eastern live on ESPN2 on August 1st, Friday, August 1st.
Amazing. So I guess that makes it super easy segue, and we'll get into your background and how you came up with this idea and overarching concepts like leagues and all that. But what is OmegaBall? Like, quickly describe it for people that, and why they should tune in on August 1st for.
Yeah, absolutely. So the catalyst for OmegaBall was to get rid of offsides in soccer. We can kind of go into how that conversation even came into play, but ultimately what transpired out of that conversation was OmegaBall, which is 3-team soccer on a round pitch, obviously no offsides. All the derivatives of that are it's 10 times more scoring than traditional soccer. It's 5 players on each team, including the goalie. You can score on the 2 other goals and you protect your own. But it's super fun. It's very compact, as you alluded to. We can get 2 OmegaBall fields in a traditional soccer pitch. So it's half the size of a regular soccer field. And the games are short. Again, going with that compact theme. It's high intensity, high energy, lots of touches on the ball, always in a scoring opportunity. And it's 3 13-minute periods. So it fits perfectly into 1 hour of TV.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when I'm curious on the offsides thing, because I've always been a huge in hockey, soccer, just in general, I think a lot of sports have too many limiting roles. Like, people like offense, they like excitement, right? So we'll touch on that. But when was the defining moment for you and your co-founders and your team to be like, all right, we have to go all in. We have to build this. And it's not just, oh, this is a cool idea. Like, all right, no, we're going to make this happen.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is this all spawned over a conversation about American football. A good friend of mine, an old colleague from ESPN, my ESPN days, was engaged by Don Yee, who's Tom Brady's agent, to start an upstart American football league called Pacific Pro. I was looking for investors for that, went to another old colleague of ours from ESPN in Oklahoma City and said, hey, would you be interested in investing in Jamie's American football league? And he's like, Anthony, I'm not doing American football. I don't think that's a good investment property. I'm all in on soccer. And when I hung up the phone with him, I was like, I like soccer, but I'm not fanatical about it. And why is that? And there's a couple of obvious things, right? But the one that really stuck with me is offsides. I despise offsides, as you were just alluding to. So I was like, I wonder if the game was less linear, could that get rid of the offsides rule? So I drew the field in the round, put a goal at the top, goal at the bottom. But even on paper, I could see, even with curved sidelines, the flow was still going to be north to south. I'm not solving the problem. As I continued to stare at it, I was like, well, if you added a third team, that would create that circular flow that I was trying to create. You couldn't do that in baseball. You couldn't do that in American football. Arguably can't do that in hockey. You actually could do that in soccer. So I went back to Bob, who, when he said he was invested in soccer, he actually owned Energy FC, which is a now defunct Oklahoma City USL team. I didn't realize that at the time. I knew he owned a minor league hockey team, which is why I thought he might be interested in investing in Jamie's football league. And that was how this all started. And that was probably where a lot of entrepreneurs hit a brick wall. Like, how do I test this? Am I going to go grab high school kids and be like, hey, play in this circle that I found? It was actually during COVID. So his USL team wasn't playing. And after I massaged this into his brain, he's like, all right, just come down to Oklahoma City and we'll use my team to do the test match, which I think I was the only guy during COVID flying from San Diego to Oklahoma City on the plane. But we got to Oklahoma City, the field was painted, the guys played it, and they loved it. Like, they were hooting and hollering, having a blast. So that was the moment that we knew we were onto something. That was in 2020, and then ultimately we debuted on FS2 in 2020. It's been a bit of a rocket ship without a seatbelt since then.
That's awesome. And how has it evolved? Like, have you changed some rules around? Have some things been moved around since the initial concept, or were you guys pretty spot on at the beginning?
No, I mean, for generally speaking, I'd say we're 85% there. We drew it initially in a round field, and then we went to a shield-looking field, seeing if that was an option. At first, we had 8 players on the team, and now obviously we're back to a round field. And then we had 8 players on the team. Then we went to 7, 6, ultimately 5. But generally speaking, the soccer rules apply here. Like all the fouls, all the penalties, the transfer from playing soccer into OmegaBall, it's like a 5 minute orientation, and you can go. Ultimately, you're still just trying to put a ball in the back of the net, right? So not a lot of adjustments. Thankfully, we did discover some exciting things, and I think from a gambling perspective, OmegaBall is good and from a sports business perspective because we really check all the boxes. We're gender agnostic. The women's side is just as exciting as the men's side. It's fun to play. It's fun to watch. Good for TV. But certainly, as we look to the future, there's great opportunities as it relates to growing it, the entire vertical. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and where are you pulling a lot of these players from? Are you taking from traditional pro leagues? Are you just, more rec players, younger? What's the demographic? Obviously, men and women you brought up, but what's the type of player typically consist of?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're excited about is we want to be additive to the soccer ecosystem. There's a ton of players out there that are either on the fringe of getting into the pro leagues or even retiring early because they're tired of the grind. So those are the players we ultimately want to attract. Recently, we've got some great ambassadors that are in the soccer landscape, from Paul Caligiuri, who's a U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer, and some of his disciples really help program our players, which has been great. But their XD1 semi-pro players is traditionally what we've been putting on the field for these a la carte games, which is all we're doing right now until we can parlay this into more of a fully functioning league.
And how do you look at it from you have your main event on ESPN, obviously, ESPN2. How do you, think about, we'll call it like upstream or downstream, like a youth version of this or an adult rec version? Like, do you
Yeah.
have it more like that TV product, or do you see this as sort of a cool alternative people can just pick up on their own time eventually, or how are you guys approaching that?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we started devising this and putting together our business plan, we assumed and we gravitated to this because myself and my partners come from sports business, doing professional sporting events, which is still our day job primarily, while we secondarily focus on OmegaBall. But we just thought let's put it in the ether. Let's grow it from the top down of the vertical. But as soon as we started being broadcasted in 2022, the bottom of the vertical, youth sports, really started to get interested in this. And one thing I'll say, whether it's an adult ex-pro or a kid, the first thing they say when they come off the field is, when can I play again? They just love it. Whether they're in traditional soccer or they've never played soccer before, it's just so much fun. It's so engaging and it's chaotic. There's so much going on. But all that being said, from the bottom of the vertical, with our exposure and what we're trying to do from developing a pro league, it's just going to meet in the middle ultimately. And all of those other opportunities in the middle of the vertical will bubble up. We've also gotten a lot of international interest. So we've done licensing deals. We're protected in almost 100 countries now with our trademark. And we've got licensees that are operating in Spain, Nigeria, Argentina, Uruguay, which are, some of these are like really traditional soccer countries, right? And they're gravitating to it. And in fact, the game on ESPN2 on August 1st will be our first international competition. And there's a team flying in from Spain to compete with us in Orlando, Florida. So we're really excited about that.
Super cool. And from the business itself, do you view it as multidimensional? Or are you viewing it right now just as these few events and games, you want to call it? Or how do you look at it from, other things around it you can do? Does it, become into more association and leagues? Does it, merge, or how do you think about building the things around it that, other leagues have done a good job with?
Yeah, I think the commercialization of OmegaBall across the board are all things that we're looking towards and are included in our pro forma, from media rights deals to merchandise to franchising. We get inquiries at least once a week about franchising. We're just not there yet. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have to overcome right now, is just creating a consistent product, because we've been self-funded to this point and that tank is pretty much empty. So we just need a little bit of funding to create a consistent product that would be appealing not only to ESPN on a more consistent basis, but also sponsorship. When we go out to market and we present this and we don't have anything consistent, it's very a la carte. That's our biggest challenge that we need to overcome right now.
Yeah, and how do you go about the education of it? I'm sure you have videos and if people tune in and watch, but how do you get people informed, especially now with just more versions of not even soccer, but just most sports, right? There's so many different, I call it like the miniaturization of it. across the board? Like, how are you educating then the user base or even current players or the market or the TV audience about like, hey, here's, what we are and how it's played, but like, hey, we're also open to like how we can make this better?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and I'm sure you see this daily, if not weekly. Like when we talk to major sports funds about investing in us, the common theme is we're too small, and the good thing about OmegaBall is the barrier to entry is almost zero, and we purposely did that. It's nothing needs to change. It's the same size goal, same size ball. We want to have the game be played, so we did that from that perspective, but also from an investment standpoint. Any kind of capital expenditure on the front end of developing this, all we need is a patch of grass. When you look at what TGL did in Palm Beach, a $50 million simulator in a stadium, like we don't need any of that stuff. So I think it's very appealing from that standpoint, but almost from that perspective, we're too small. And when we say, hey, we need 5 million, and we might never need to take money again because that'll get the snowball rolling. A lot of the time they're like, oh, we don't cut checks for less than 20 million. And we're like, so where do we find that perfect investor and partner is challenging, as I'm sure a lot of the other folks in the Profluence community have experienced and that you've seen.
Yeah, it's always, and especially like the gap you're talking about is such I guess it's a area for opportunity on the investment front, but there's very much this gap between like 5 and 20 million where you have the bigger check writers, they want a little more traction, and then they're not going to go super early, but there's a huge swamp of people up there and increasing daily. And there's only so many, deals or companies there. And then at the earlier stage side, you're good, under, but it's like that sweet spot kind of where you are, where it's also a mix of like, yeah, it can be a tech play, it can be media, but it's league, like it's quite fascinating. I think there'll be some folks that come up with some unique structures over time to make that happen.
Yeah, the
Now,
uniqueness of Omega Ball is really how we try to pitch it. We got 3 teams. That's different. From a gambling perspective, there's not a lot of opportunity in traditional soccer, but there's a ton in Omega Ball. Goalies can even score in Omega Ball. There's goalie assists. And then there's vulture plays, which is a dynamic that is unseen in any other sport, where if Team A is trying to score on Team B, Team C comes in from an offensive standpoint, steals the ball from Team A and scores. We call that a vulture goal. There's also scoring from what we call a delta kick, which you could envision kind of like a corner kick in traditional soccer. A lot more scoring opportunities because we're not flat to the goal, we're round, right? So these are all things that we've inserted into the game that has injected more scoring opportunities, which is beneficial from playing, viewing, as well as sports tech and sports gambling for that matter.
100%. 100%. How do you, go from 0 to 1, I guess, from hey, you got this event on ESPN2. I'm just, for people on the back end that don't always understand when they're sitting on the couch with their remote about to watch something, like what goes into some of these things from a high level? Obviously, that's been a lot of your background as well. And feel free to, add any color there. But, what's it take to make this a good product on TV? From as much as you can share. I think it's worthwhile for people to give perspective for things trying to grow and break through, just of like, hey, the product looks simple on the back end, but it's not so much when you're actually building it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's tons of complications and challenges as it relates to developing a sport and then ultimately a league, which I would not accuse us of having completed that task yet. But, it kind of started accidentally, but certainly I spent most of my time at X Games, so we were constantly manipulating sports through that. I was director of operations there for 15 years. So and while we were planning the event side, I sat in all those production meetings to understand what was interesting to TV, what was rating well. So all of that was ingrained in me. And then conversely, I didn't play soccer. I mean, 2nd and 3rd grade, I played soccer. I don't think that counts. So I think having that experience from the X Games side and then being so disassociated with soccer was the kind of the magic sauce. Because if I had played soccer, I would have thought about it too much differently. So that's kind of where we ended up. But as it relates to creating a compelling product on the field, we didn't want to shrink the goals. We kept the goals the same size because we want more scoring. We got rid of rules that created less opportunity for scoring. So it was definitely some manipulation of it, but we also wanted to be true to creating something that was like I said, low barrier to entry, like slam ball. If you remember that from a couple years ago, like, you can't go play slam ball. It's only a TV product. So we were really excited once we started developing this that it was easy to play, fun to watch, fun to play, And we knew the commingling all those things together with high action on the field was going to create a compelling TV product.
How do traditional soccer folks typically, like the diehard Europeans, like it sounds like you have a team coming over to play. Like, have they been pretty embracing of it, or
Yeah.
what's that like? Just being more in the weeds of it. I'm always curious how people. Again, you said you weren't like a pure soccer person, so you're coming from an outside perspective anyway. But I'm always curious on that front of like being a basketball person. I have a very unique perspective and thinking towards 3-on-3 basketball, and we're seeing a lot of that now, right? And so I'm always wondering, like, okay, what has been the reception from soccer, for example, with like OmegaBall?
Yeah, it's very splintered as it relates to you either love it or you hate it.
Mm.
And we get a lot of people that love it, and when they say they love it, they have a lot of reasons why they like it and why they get it. When we get the detractors, which of course you get, we get accused of an American must have thought of this. We get a lot of that on social. And sometimes I follow up and I say, well, why do you hate it so much? And not a single person has ever responded or told me why. But everyone that loves it gives me 5 reasons why they love it. So I think, people are resistant to change. People love the beautiful game, and we do too. We want to support that as it relates to how youth is really being siloed into sports now. Like if you're a baseball player, the baseball coaches don't really want you to go play another sport in the off season. They want it to be to develop your baseball skills. So we really feel like we have an opportunity there. Again, just supporting the soccer community where you can play soccer and then in the off season play OmegaBall, and it's still soccer related, and it's really going to develop your skills as a soccer player because you are much more on a swivel and thinking much more rather than so linear in soccer. You're thinking about the field in a much different way that I think will be beneficial to soccer players moving forward once we get more ingrained into the soccer ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I can resonate with that. And it's cool. Just from like a 3-on-3 Basel lens, that's what I know. It's splintered too, but I have always liked it because it's just you get to see a whole different game, but within the same game. And so very similar with OmegaBall, which is super cool. Now, I know you brought up like sports tech and betting and some of these things around it. What else have you been keeping an eye on across the space, just in general, as you're building this out, just to be aware, be informed, so you guys can make the best decisions, both monetarily, but also just from a fan perspective or whatever. How do you, what are you keeping an eye on across as sports is just evolving so rapidly?
Yeah, it's an exciting time, and this thought came to us in 2019. That's when we first started having conversations about it. So the amount of time and seeing what's taken place in the sports landscape since then, is truly incredible. But certainly the Profluence community is something that we engage with. I'm on my computer till 11 o'clock at night, handling our day job, planning events for sports. We have the ESPY Awards. We do the red carpet for that tomorrow night. So it's definitely a grind. But in my spare time between Profluence and Sports Business Journal, I think those are my 2 biggest resources that I pay attention to right now.
Super cool. And I appreciate the shout out. I wasn't like fishing for that. I was going more of just like, are there like AI things you're watching? Are there other concepts or how people are doing things? Is there anything else? Like, it sounds like betting you guys are thinking about when the time's right, you'll execute. Like, are there any other ancillary areas that you see as opportunities or like can help enhance what you're doing?
Yeah, I think across the board, there's things that we can inject into OmegaBall that a lot of other leagues are doing. Another league that I pay attention to, not just from an educational perspective, but watching what they're doing is certainly PLL, which I think a lot of folks in my level or our level of our situation, I should say, are paying attention to because I watching how they grew and I think we would emulate that moving forward, kind of be very geographically constrained to start and then spread out from there just to save money. So I look at those guys, but as it relates to the sport, it's funny. Technology is such a big part of sports these days, but we can be pretty analog with what we're doing. We want to embrace the tech, but like lacrosse and baseball added a pitch clock, right? Or a shot clock, depending on what sport you're looking at. We don't even need a shot clock because we have a third team that's pestering you for the ball. So things are gravitating towards tech. It's kind of fun to take a step back and really embrace the analog nature of our game we definitely want to have all of the bells and whistles. But as you're watching like Sail GP, it's overloaded with tech. And I think from our perspective, we'll have some tech, but we also want to embrace the analog side of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of sports, right? Is like the analog will always be there. The tech is gonna keep evolving and faster. I know and enhance it in certain ways, but yeah, it's the people coming together to play is always going to be there. So yeah, no, Anthony, this has been awesome. It's been great learning more about OmegaBall, what you guys are doing. Obviously, August 1st, ESPN 2, 12 noon Eastern time. Everyone tune in. We'll make sure that's clear. And then where can people learn more as well? What's website or the best way to stay up to date as you guys launch more events? If people want to play, whatever it is, where can people get those rundown? I'm assuming it's your website.
Yeah, we're pretty active on socials, Instagram primarily, but certainly omegaball.com, email info@omegaball.com, and then I'm on LinkedIn. So happy to chat with anyone at any time.
Awesome. I love it. Well, good stuff. And look forward to checking in as this thing keeps growing and exploding over the next couple of years.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.